Here we go. Chapter 6, Emotional Regulation. Well, I guess you have to first of all think about emotion broadly. You know, emotions don't force us to act in any particular stereotypical kind of way. They just increase our likelihood of doing so. So if I am angry and I have an urge to be sarcastic, I'm not destined or doomed to be sarcastic if that's a part of who I am, but I'm more likely to be sarcastic when triggered than when I'm happy. So emotional regulation is really all about how people manage their emotions for personal and social reasons. We're going to look at both of those. So specifically, it's about 4 different types of responses. It's kind of managing or controlling what kind of emotions we experience, when we experience them, how strongly we experience them, and then how we express them. Those 4 aspects. You know, if we look at the actual science, the study of emotional regulation, we can probably date it back to Freud, when he was doing his research in the late 1890s, early 1900s, and particularly addressing defense mechanisms. In fact, I still have a list of defense mechanisms that was handed down to me in the 1970s when I was in school, and I still keep that copy and PDF it because I remember the old days and nothing's changed since then. Freud's work is Freud's work. But that's kind of the part of the history. We started studying defense mechanisms then, and most of them were considered a bit negative. We really didn't do a whole lot of research in psychology after that until the 1960s, 70s, 80s, when Susan Folkman and Richard Lazarus did look at coping styles and how coping styles and stress are related to each other and particularly to our physical health. And then there was another gap until the 1990s when folks like James Gross came up with the study of more than defense mechanisms, more than coping styles, something that actually they considered affect regulation. So you just saw the set, affect regulation, with the 4 main ingredients under it. Coping is really much more about how to hang in there and respond to negative events. So coping is really about addressing more this negative side of our emotional life. Emotional regulation we're going to get into in much greater detail, but it's about how to manage those transitions, those moments we have in our lives where we are intensely feeling something. Mood regulation, which is not so much the focus in this course, is about how to deal with those affects that stay with us. They stay with us more like hours on end instead of transitionally. So if I pass a deer in the road that's been hit by a car and is lying dead, a carcass on the side of the road, which is what happens in the fall semesters frequently, I can feel sad that that deer was hit and died. And it's something that I'll feel probably more rather than less on my way to school. And once I'm at school, I'm feeling other things because I'm involved in class, because I'm involved with other people, because of many things going on in my life. That's a feeling. If for some reason I can't quite shake that feeling, it keeps coming back to me as a memory. I keep feeling a deep sense of sadness that a life ended, and it ended at a time when I could see it. Then we're talking about that transition from emotion into mood. It's something that's much longer lasting, and it can put me in sort of a down mood that can last for the rest of the day, sometimes even days on end. There's by the way, another level where it can be something that is so much of a ingrained and embedded part of who I am that it can become a part of my personality, and I would be said to have sort of not just a down mood, but I'd be sort of a downer person. So the distinctions there are really distinctions of time frame. Defenses are ways that we handle our positive and negative feelings, which may seem interesting, but it may be a way when we rationalize to help ourselves feel better, for instance, or if we want to suppress some feelings in order to get into sort of the imagining world, the wish world. Oh, if I could only wish the lottery, if I could only win the lottery, that kind of wishful state. So defense mechanisms actually are ways that we can have ourselves feel more positively as well as cope with some negative items. And the way psychologists look at all of the affect regulation area, and that those are our 4 subsets, is there's not necessarily a good or bad way to be, although there are certainly more helpful and wiser defense mechanisms and coping styles than others.